There's an ancient tradition in the church to make this proclamation. The proclamation of the movable feast days of the calendar year. It's why churches even today still give out calendars for the new year, because these were feast days that aren't fixed to special days. Christmas, December 25th, but Easter, nobody knew when the date of Easter was until it happened, because Easter always falls on the first Sunday after the first full moon, after the vernal equinox, which is in spring. And so once that day is figured out for the year, then you know when Ash Wednesday is going to fall, and when Ascension, and Pentecost, and all of the other feast days. And so it was tradition that by using our reason, by looking into the stars, by knowing the movement of the moon and the planets, we would be able to know our calendar. And the church would announce that to the people on this feast. Because this is the feast of looking into the stars. This is the feast of looking up into the sky and knowing things. In other words, the Feast of Epiphany reveals to us the great marriage of faith and reason. That the church especially esteems both of these sciences. The science of faith and theology and the natural sciences by which we are able to know things. We're able to study. We're able to reflect. We're able to experiment. We're able to read. We're able to bring together knowledge that we gain from science and knowledge that we gain from religion and put the two together. That's exactly what the Magi did. The Magi were astronomers or astrologers of some sort, probably in service to the kings of the Far East. And as they looked into the heavens and watched the movements of the planets and watched the movements of the stars, they realized that there was something new that had happened at this time. And when they noticed that, they said, well, there must be something great that has happened. Because for this new star to appear, for this one that we haven't seen before, something great must also have happened on earth. The convergence of a God King and our humanity. Where is he? And so these men, science took them only so far. And then they had to open up their faith. And they had to open up the ancient scriptures from different traditions. And eventually they happened upon the scriptures of Israel. And in there, they found the predictions of the birth of the Messiah. Because when you read the Old Testament, there are dozens and dozens of prophecies about the birth of the Messiah, and where and how he is going to come into the world. So it's not a surprise to anyone. Which in some ways is shocking that Herod and his scribes and his people didn't pay attention to that. When he asked them, they go scouring through the scriptures and they eventually say, oh yeah, he's going to be born in Bethlehem. It kind of says right here. And that's why Herod then eventually orders the execution of all of the young, especially in Bethlehem and the surrounding region. But there's a difference then, as you see, between the Magi and King Herod. They both had at their disposal knowledge. They knew where, when, and how the Messiah was to be born. The difference? The Magi wanted to know. Herod did not. The Magi knew that this was a portent that promised something great, and that it would make their lives better if they got closer to it. If there is a Messiah, if there is a God King that is born into the world, then we want to draw close to that because our lives are going to be better. Herod looked at that and said, if there is a God King, what's going to happen to my kingship? Yes, I want the Messiah to come, but not yet. Not while I'm sitting on the throne. I don't want to lose my throne. I don't want to lose my power. So yeah, I want the Messiah, but at a distance. I want to keep him at a comfortable distance. We all do that, I think, to some degree. I was driving home on New Year's Day, back to Columbus to see Mom and Dad. And as I was driving from Fremont to North Bend, there was a state trooper right behind me. It made me nervous. Even though I had my cruise control set, and I was still nervous. I kept looking in my mirror, looking at my dashboard, and making sure I was doing everything I was supposed to be doing. It made me nervous. I want law enforcement to be around, but not right behind me. I don't want them to be that close. And I think that's sometimes the way we like our God. We want God to be there, but not that close. Because when He's that close, it requires me to pay more attention. It requires that I am more in control. It requires that I might have to change myself, or my thinking, or my opinions, or my thoughts. It means I have to alter something in order to be that close. Herod didn't want that. He was afraid of what that would mean. He was afraid that it would make him less than he was. Where the Magi realized that if we get that close to God, He's going to make us more than we ever thought we could be. And there's the difference between Herod and the Magi. One wanted to find Him to be made better. One didn't want to find Him so that He could stay comfortable in His life as He knew it. As we examine our own hearts and as we look into our own lives, we see this reality throughout our culture. You can lay the facts. You can lay the science. You can lay the teachings before someone. And if we want to see it, we will. And if we don't, we won't. Two examples jump right to my mind immediately. Now, with all of our biomedical understanding and technology and ultrasounds and sonograms and science, we know without a doubt that after conception, this thing in the womb is unique and alive and human. It must be a person, separate from mom, separate from dad. We can see that. You can be testing on that. You can know that. But I don't want to know that because it's an inconvenient truth. And so I would rather not look too closely so that I can then make whatever decision I want to make. Or if you've been following the news, as I have, you've noticed that the United Methodist Church just recently took a pretty astounding vote to separate, to divide amongst themselves, because they could not reconcile over the issue of what marriage is. Is marriage as God intended between man and woman, or is marriage defined somehow, some way, some else? And in their congregations, they have voted to separate. And the statement that they put out, I thought was astounding. That this is the best course of action for us, because we cannot achieve reconciliation over this issue. And this allows everyone to hold the theological understanding that they already hold. In other words, it allows us to believe whatever we want. And so we will split and just go on believing whatever we want. And that's fascinating to me because it makes no sense. Either something is revealed and true, or it is not. But how both can be equally true makes no sense. We talk about that in RCIA a lot, about the Catholic Church, that to the Catholic mind, schism, division, separation is so foreign to us. Because in Catholicism, the very heart of our faith, the most important thing for us is communion. Not only in the sacrament of communion, but also in the communion that we share by our faith, that we are united, not only to each other, but to God. And I think that's why we also have that other great sacrament, reconciliation. That when communion is broken by sin, or by stubbornness, or by hard-headedness, we're able to be reconciled and to bend our will to the truth, to bend our hearts to the will of God as opposed to my own will. When we get close to God, we realize I can't have it my way. We have it God's way. But God's way lifts us up. It makes us better. It fills us with a greater understanding of how things are. It sets us free. Herod would not have been deposed. The Lord Jesus would have fulfilled His kingship. He would have strengthened Him in His kingship. Just as the Magi were not thrown off of their pedestals or whatever they had. In fact, they were raised up so that the whole world now knows them and honors them and celebrates them. When the Lord comes into our life and we recognize His star, His light, His truth, we have great power. We are lifted up and made better. And so we should use those great powers that we have, the power of reason, the power of study, the power of knowledge, and also the power of faith and theological and philosophical inquiry. These two things cannot lead in two different directions. There is one truth, and that truth is found in Jesus Christ. And both of these things will always lead to Him if they are true. That's what the Feast of the Epiphany celebrates. And that's why it's an even older feast than Christmas, because Christmas happened quietly and in mystery. The Epiphany is when the whole world now knows that God is among us and He can be found. So we go forth from this place today knowing that there is truth, that it is knowable, and that we can share that and not be ashamed, because not only is it our faith, but it is also reasonable. And when we bring all of this together, we ourselves are made better, tighter in our communion, not only with each other, but also with God, who shows us in the humble manger that God has been made man, and He is so close to us, especially on this feast of the marriage between heaven and earth, faith and reason.